Welcome to another episode of Altitude Advantage. I am your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. In the podcast studio across the table, as always, our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. A tough road loss for the Denver Broncos as they fall to the Indianapolis Colts on a game-winning field goal. A lot to break down from that sequence of events. And we're going to talk about the run game and a few other things in this podcast as we break down this Week 2 game. So tossing it over to you, just 24 hours. We always let you digest a little bit, but now we're here. What are your takeaways from this game?
Yeah, I think it was difficult. It was a tough loss, one of the tougher ones in recent memory, I think, to be sure. And Sean Payton said Monday, like, listen, in the NFL, a lot of games are one-score games, and so when you lose them, there's kind of this natural inclination for them to be like this, where they're difficult, where they sting. But this one, it definitely does. And I think that one of the things when you go back and watch is that there were a number of moments where, and is it 4, 5, 6, whatever it might be, moments where if you make one play, we're probably talking about the Broncos being 2-0 on this Monday, and at least 4 until the Chargers and Raiders play tonight, having being in first place in the division. And so that's where I think it's difficult, is that you had an opportunity. The Chiefs fall yesterday to 0-2. You have an opportunity to take a 2-game lead on them in the division, even though it's early. I think it's never,
gotta rack them up when you can.
Yeah, never too early to rack them up. And listen, the Broncos made, as Sean Payton talked about Monday, they weren't at their best. They made some critical errors, and yet they still had this opportunity to win the football game. And whether it's making a field goal, not having a penalty on a long game-winning field goal, not throwing an interception, being able to intercept Daniel Jones when you've got the chance, like there were 4 or 5 plays that when you go back and watch, I was almost like, well, can't we just change the outcome of one of these and see
what happens?
And I think that you're in a position where you probably win the football game and you come away feeling like, man, we didn't play our best, and yet we found a way to win. And I thought it was interesting what Bo Nix said after the game, which was that good teams find a way to bounce back from something like this, but great teams don't lose games like that. And so I think the Broncos are still working their way toward being that great level of team, and we'll see how they bounce back this week. We'll certainly get to that. But, yeah, it was just it was this back-and-forth game. It was kind of a shootout in the first half, and then it seemed like the Broncos gained some control. They had that 4th down stop in the first half. They took an 8-point lead after that. They had another 4th down stop in the second half, and it felt like, okay, just put this one away, and it kind of files under the category of like you grinded it out, you stuck with it, you weathered some hits.
Yeah.
And yet over the course of the Colts, after the Broncos took a 28-20 lead with 11 minutes, on their first drive of the third quarter, the Colts have 3 unanswered field goals. And in that midst, as we'll talk about, the Broncos had chances to add points of their own. But I think it's perfectly encapsulated in that final field goal attempt, 60 yards.
Yeah.
The Colts kind of curiously played for a 60-yard attempt. They ran it 3 straight times after they got to the Broncos, like about the 38-yard line, ended up going backwards a couple yards. And then you have this 60-yard kick. They miss it. I'm standing on the sideline, and for a second you think, wow, they've escaped, they've won.
Yeah.
And then quickly you realize there's a flag, and you have the re-kick. Colts win. I thought Sean Payton did the right thing Monday morning, saying, hey, that's on me. That's what bugged him on the flight back, was that what they were trying to do was kind of have a Justin Simmons-esque leap over the line. It sounded like the play was called correctly, but maybe there were some personnel substitutions for the Colts that complicated things a bit. But ultimately, Sean Payton said, like, in retrospect, that's probably a play call that's better for, a chip shot field goal, a shorter field goal, where you really need to disrupt the operation.
Yeah.
Whereas with a 60-yard kick, and my understanding is that Spencer Schrader, credit to him for, after missing that original kick, being able to reset it and make the next one, but he had not made a kick longer than 45 yards in the NFL. And so you wonder, do you just try to see if if he misses, and he did miss. And so that's where the field goal thing kind of netted out to. And I did think it was I appreciated Sean Payton saying, hey, as a head coach, I've got to say that's not the play for this moment. It's not on Darren Rizzi, the special teams coordinator, not on Dondre Tillman, who was the one who was flagged for the leverage penalty. I think a lot of people found out
what a leverage
penalty was.
Yeah.
But a tough moment, and all you can do is move on from it. But unfortunately, as we know, it was not the only kind of missed opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's the tale of the tape from last week, right? Was grinding it out, even though some mistakes were made, they found a way to win the football game. But in this game, when you just look at how the sequence of events played out, just missed opportunities was another big part of it. Sean Payton said on Monday's conference call, it's like the second straight week, I believe he said that the offense on the opposing team was able to score on their first drive. And that's not something that, whether it's 3 points or a touchdown, like it needs to be 0 points. And I think when you look back at just starting out fast, starting out strong, that continues to be where their focus needs to remain and where they need to continue to work on to make sure. Because when you look at the Colts' entire game, they had no punts in this game. They had no punts in week one either. And so whether they're going for it on fourth down or they're coming away with some kind of points, I think that's the part that you want to make sure you're able to stop. And then for the Broncos, again, like their last three was punt, an interception, and a missed field goal. So just like the missed opportunities that they had in this game was just something that I feel they all felt in the locker room. And what I got from post-game locker room, especially Nick Bonito and Mike McGlinchey and Alex Singleton, that I really respected was just they all felt and they basically said we all played a part, right? This game does not come down to one play. It doesn't come down to the missed field goal. It doesn't come down to the leverage penalty because we put ourselves in the situation. As you mentioned, there are multiple places in this game where the Broncos really could have pulled away at any point, especially when they're kind of red hot in the beginning, and they didn't. And so I think not being able to put this game away early ended up kind of coming back to haunt them, and they all kind of had this similar thing of just hurting themselves and putting themselves in the situation. But the unity of that, at least, of the guys saying, like, look, we're not going to put it on Tillman. We're not going to put it on Lutz. Like, this is a team sport. And McGlinchey said it best. He's like, if you think that football comes down to one play, you don't really know football very well.
Yeah, I think your point in the first half is a good one where, they score the opening field goal. Broncos take a lead with a touchdown. They go down and score a field goal. And then it's like, okay, well, and it's tough, right? Because you can't expect perfection from the offense in terms of like, hey, score a touchdown on every drive. But you get the ball back and you think, okay, well, can you score a touchdown there or a field goal and kind of like jump back in front?
Right.
Or they had the lead, but extend the lead. Instead, you go 3 and out. The Colts come back, score a touchdown, and they're ahead again. And then, I thought one thing about the Broncos offense in the first half especially was that they responded, and they did this against the Titans too. Like when the other team took the lead, they responded well. So in this game, first drive, Colts take the lead. The Broncos on the next drive go retake the lead. In this game, Colts take the lead early in the second quarter. Next drive, Broncos take the lead again. And that was kind of the Troy Franklin drive, really impressed by him and what he was able to do. And then I thought, the Broncos, after that fourth down stop in the second quarter, they score again and extend the lead. And that was a great example of complementary football, playing to your strengths, like you're mentioning, taking advantage of the situation. But then it's like you said, there were a couple moments where maybe you could have just pushed it away, and it's 3rd and 3 on the Colts' next drive, and there's a penalty, they convert that third down, and then on the next play, it's a 44-yard pass to Alec Pierce, and the Colts are able to pull it within 21-20. Another great opportunity, I thought, for the Broncos with 90 seconds left to move down the field, score some points, double up when you get the ball after halftime. Unfortunately, another 3 and out. And again, you can't expect perfection from the offense, but in a game like that that's back and forth, I thought there were a couple critical moments in the first half especially where, hey, can we add this lead and make it a double-digit lead?
Yeah.
Because the Broncos' lead never got bigger than 8 points, which it was at a couple of times, but it never got bigger than that.
Yeah.
You're able to come out, I thought, third quarter, you reset. That was a big drive for the Broncos to be able to establish something. Mm-hmm. They go right down the field. They score again. And again, you have that 8-point lead, but the next drive, right? Like, Can you force a 3-and-out? Can you get a stop? Instead, the Colts go down the field, cut it to a 5-point game. And then from there, the final 3 drives, like you mentioned, are just full of those missed opportunities that, like just one of them, right? Like that next drive, you've got 3rd and 4 at all 3 of those drives too got into Indianapolis territory and not able to score points. So 3rd and 4, have to punt. Next drive, you get that 4th down stop, and again, it feels like, hey, maybe there's a chance here to put this away. There's about 13 minutes left. If you score a touchdown, even a field goal,
put it out of reach.
You're back up 8 with a field goal. It's 3rd and 3 at the 28, so that's a 45-yard field goal from there. Instead, Bo Nix, it looked like the pass was maybe tipped at the line of scrimmage. That pass is picked off. I actually thought the next drive in the stadium, it had been like kind of quiet. I think Colts fans are like, oh, the Broncos are, after that 4th down stop, maybe the Broncos are going to pull away here. After that interception, and Bo Nix said after the game, that's where the momentum maybe shifted. The place was energized. Jonathan Taylor breaks off this 68-yard run. A big credit to Talanoa Hufanga for racing down there to stop him from scoring a touchdown because the Broncos ended up holding him to a field goal. And Elisa, the defense by no means was up to their standard. And Sean Payton mentioned the missed assignments and all that and the execution errors during the game. But all that said, they held the Colts to 2 of 6 in the red zone, which was incredibly important and gave them a chance. They came up with 2 4th down stops, which are the equivalent of turnovers, especially at midfield. So it's not like the defense didn't make its plays, but a lot of the Colts' yards were between the 20s, and then they struggled a little bit when they got down there. So you give yourself a chance again, but then, whether it's the Dobbins delay of game penalty, the face mask on Adam Troutman, the missed kick, that hurts you. And it's like maybe you could have survived 1 or 2 of those, but
not all 3.
But when you pair the interception with the penalty, with the missed field goal, with the field goal block, all those things, it just became too much to overcome. And yet I liked what Sean Payton said Monday, which was, hey, despite all those things, we did all these things wrong, and we're still in the football game on the road. I think we're going to look back in a few months and be like, that's a pretty good Colts team, a good Colts offense. The way that Daniel Jones played, I don't think is a fluke. They've got some weapons, whether it's Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor. We can turn to the defense here in a second, but that's just like the story is that it felt like there were a bunch of different moments where the Broncos could have put this away, kind of found a way to get out of there with a win. And yet that's where, I was thinking this morning, and I don't know, to you, I don't know if it felt like the Chiefs game last year, and I think there were some similarities, but that one to me felt like you did everything right in that Chiefs game. Like you played them tight. Yeah. You grind out the clock on this 5-minute drive at the end of the game. You set up this game-winning field goal, and it's like, man, we executed this to perfection, and we lost. And it's like it's crushing because you did everything right. This was different in that you had several opportunities to close it out, and you couldn't convert on any of them. And that's where it's like they both hurt, but it's kind of in different ways because the Chiefs one was like, man, we executed this perfectly, and the field goal gets blocked. This was more like, man, there were 4 or 5 chances. If we just do one of these things, we're 2-0.
Yeah, and I think I definitely had that sentiment of just that gut wrenching of it's kind of like, okay, when the 6-yard came into play and obviously he doesn't make it, you're kind of like, whew, okay, way to escape. And then the penalty comes in, you're kind of like, oh no. You just have this feeling in your gut of just oh man, Nick, this is really going to get away from us. And I think a lot of the guys had that sentiment where they kind of said because they asked a few guys, they asked Pat, they asked Nick, when did you kind of know that there was a penalty? And they just said well, we didn't. And then we heard the roar of the crowd, and then we got the call, and it was kind of like, oh man, so that these gut-wrenching loss, they just feel like sucker punches, straight to the gut, just takes the air out of you. But what this team did well last year whenever they were put in that situation is use that to never want to feel that again, right? And never want to feel that adversity, or not feel that adversity, but not feel that loss of something where if you do everything right and things don't work out, that's one way. But when you know that you could have done everything in your power to do things differently and you didn't, that's a different kind of lesson that you're dealing with over the course of the next few days as you go into a divisional matchup on the road as well. So not like the train doesn't stop moving. Like you have to continue to go on and reset as you go into this divisional game, because we'll break that down more on Thursday's podcast. But when you look back at this game, there's a lot to take from it that, like you have to be better, whether it's time of possession, whether it's, total yards that you're allowing in the game, key moments, things like that, and just not coming up empty, especially against certain teams that are just either on a hot streak or whatever. Like you cannot go down the field and come up empty.
Yeah, I think obviously defensively you're going to have to be better. And looking at this game, the Colts, defensively, it's kind of, there's two elements here. One is that, like I said a second ago, between the 20s, they kind of move the ball at will, almost 500 yards of total offense. Jonathan Taylor had 215 yards from scrimmage. Daniel Jones was really effective, more than 300 yards passing for him. And yet you buckled down in the red zone when it mattered. And I think my question is, one, is that sustainable in the red zone? Like the Broncos defense has been good in the red zone the last few years, near the top of the league. But at the same time, if you give a team 6 red zone trips, you can't assume that every week you're going to hold them to 2 touchdowns.
The law of averages, eventually.
Right. Their teams are going to make plays. And so the Broncos have to find a way to make more plays, especially against, you're going to play top offenses. And you'll probably see one of them this week with the Chargers. They obviously haven't played their Monday night game, but based on how Herbert looked in week 1, this is going to be just as big of a challenge.
Yeah.
And so how do you find ways to force punts, to get takeaways where you're not kind of letting teams get down to the red zone, the edge of the red zone, and kicking a bunch of field goals? And granted, there are worse things than allowing field goals, and certainly just the nature of the game for a long time. When the Broncos were up, I think even 28-26, the story of the game was, hey, the Broncos are 3 of 3 in the red zone. The Colts are 2 of 6, and that's why the Broncos are winning. But you've got to find a way to make those plays to get off the field on third down. Sean Payton mentioned how effective the Colts were on first down, how many yards they were averaging. And we talked about that on the preview, right? If the Colts live in second and short, third and short, they can kind of have the game as they want it from an offensive standpoint. If you put them in third and long, you're going to have more success. And I think over and over, the Colts found ways to put themselves, I haven't counted it up, but the one third and long I remember was in the fourth quarter, the Broncos bring 6 or 7 guys, and Daniel Jones is almost picked off. And so in that moment, you have some success because you put them in an inopportune situation. But for the most part, it was third and short when they even got to third down. And so you've got to find a way this week to make those corrections. Pat Surtain, obviously, it was not necessarily what we often see from Pat. He was dealing with that injury. Sean Payton mentioned that it wasn't necessarily the Colts targeting him. It was, their route progression just kind of led them to Pat Surtain, and I'm sure he's going to be fired up, ready to respond.
Yeah.
I think it was the most catches he's allowed since 2022. So, it wasn't kind of what we are used to seeing from Pat, but then I think it also wasn't what we were used to seeing from the defense in general. And Nick Bonito after the game was there were a couple plays I could have made. And that was like you mentioned earlier, the common refrain of a bunch of guys felt like there was a play here, a play there. Even on the go-ahead field goal drive, Bonito hits Daniel Jones a split second after he gets rid of the ball. That's a strip sack for a win if he's there a split second earlier. And so defensively, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, late in the year, last year, there were some struggles defensively. What is this group, and how do they respond to that performance? Again, I don't want to suggest it was all bad, because you have the 2 fourth down stops that are like turnovers, and that stat that you mentioned, the Colts haven't punted yet this year. It's all over the place. I don't love it just because there were 2 fourth down stops. It's not like they've scored on every possession. They certainly got close, but you've got to find a way. Overall, 9 real possessions for the Colts. They scored on 7 of them. You've got to find a way to be better than that. And because that's like, from a complimentary football standpoint, and like you're talking about putting some of these games away, that matters.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, like, before the end of that, like, they didn't score a touchdown in the second half, I don't believe, right?
Who's that?
The Colts, right? Did they have a touchdown in the second half?
No,
No, right? They scored 3 field goals. So, again, to your point, like, there is some good you take from there, but I think it's frustrating for this defense, especially coming off the performance they had against Tennessee. They're going on the road. They're getting ready. They've seen this team before. And for them not to get this win in the way that they wanted to was very frustrating. You could see it you could see it in the locker room. You could just feel it in their post game. But they also understand, like, this league continues to go on. You're facing the Chargers this week. After that, you have a Monday night football game against the Bengals, and then you have a road game against the defending champs, which is the Philadelphia Eagles. So, like, this is not going to get easier. And so the short memory, being able to respond is one thing. But taking the positive from this game, despite, yes, the late half, I thought the run game was beneficial. I thought, J.K. Dobbins had a good performance. And then you did see, I think last week in our preview, we talked about, will the offense take the next step, right, to get going early and getting guys involved. And they did that. Obviously in the second half was a different story, but in the first half they were able to do that.
Yeah, the run game I thought was good. It was encouraging, kind of built off what they did in the fourth quarter against the Titans.
Yeah.
J.K. Dobbins was really impressive. It started from the very beginning. The first offensive play from scrimmage, he broke free for, I think, 18 yards, and it was a nice rush to establish kind of what the Broncos wanted to do. They rode the hot hand. He had the big run late for 23 yards. Obviously, I'm sure he wishes he could have the spike back that pushes the Broncos back 5 valuable yards. But in general, the run game was effective. And, I don't view it as like the offense went stagnant in the second half. You've got the one punt, which, listen, again, it's not realistic to expect a team to score on every single possession. But you have the punt, then you've got the interception, which, if it's not tipped, does the ball get to Cortland? And then you're talking about a first down. Like, that play was easily explainable. And then you have the missed field goal where you a chance to add 3 more points, to some degree easily explainable after the penalties. So Sean Payton was saying, like, there's no mystery about what happened offensively. Mm-hmm. It's like we can point directly to, hey, here's a third down play. Here's a interception. Here's a missed field goal after the penalties. Like, it's very easy to say,
what went wrong?
We had 3 scoring opportunities, and here's why we didn't convert them. It's not like they got the ball at their own 20 in this half and went 3 and out. Even on the last one with the missed field goal, they started. Where did they start?
Denver 35.
This is like the longest game book I've ever seen.
They started the Denver 35, I believe.
Denver 35. They go. What is that, like 40 yards? Mm-hmm. I think
41
like
yards.
That.
Yep.
Before they missed the kick, so like they picked up 1, 2, 3 first downs. This was an extended drive that took almost 5.5 minutes off the clock. If you, and I don't mean to boil it down to one play, and it shouldn't be boiled down to one play, but like just say that you change one play and that kick goes in, or it hits the upright and it was kind of on the outer edge of the upright, but like say that goes in.
Yeah.
You're now talking about, okay, we're up 8 again with 3:15 to go after just taking 5.5 minutes off the clock. And we're talking about, hey, that is a well-executed end of game drive, kind of a 4-minute scenario, if you will, where you really lean on the running game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rushes on that drive. Like you're talking about, hey, this was done really well. And instead, one thing kind of goes wrong, and it doesn't work out. This is just a crazy stat that I saw as I was looking at this.
What?
The Colts did not have the ball with the lead for a single second of this game. And that was what I talked about with the Broncos responding.
Yeah.
Like the Colts opening field goal, Broncos go back down and retake the lead. Titans, or excuse, gosh, I keep doing that. The Colts score a touchdown early in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Broncos go right down and take the lead. So never did the Broncos have the ball trailing. And that's kind of, that's not, never did the Colts have the ball with the lead, whereas the Broncos had the ball with the lead for nearly 21 minutes in this game. And so it just kind of like, it spoke to the opportunities Denver had. I think it shows you there were some good things they did, whether it was defensively in the red zone, whether it was Bo Nix. We haven't talked about him yet. I thought the way he responded after week one was really impressive. That the play we'll see over and over was the roll to the left, throwing it down the sideline to Troy Franklin, who made a big-time extending catch. I don't think he makes that catch as a rookie, quite frankly. The way that we saw some of those plays last year, there were some easier catches than that he didn't make. I think that speaks to his confidence. Has a couple other catches on the drive, scores a touchdown. We see Bo Nix get the ball to Marvin Mims for a touchdown, and then like the play design on the third and final touchdown pass to Adam Troutman, he's wide open.
Yeah,
like that is this Broncos offense at its best. We
spraying
saw
the ball around. Yep.
I think was it in the third quarter on that scoring drive where it's I don't like how these game books are organized. I'm going to file a formal complaint. It's 3rd and 4 on the first drive of the third quarter.
Yeah.
Bo scrambles up the middle for 18 yards. And, like, that's an element that we didn't see a ton against the Titans, but his ability to contribute with his legs, boom, you've got another touchdown drive. And so I come out of this game feeling, like, really encouraged, actually, by the Broncos offense. And if it weren't for a couple of mistakes, we're talking about, hey, they just dropped 30 points, right?
Yeah.
If that field goal goes in, if that's a completion to Court, even if that pass to Court falls incomplete, kick a field goal, assuming it goes in, you're at 31. So there were, I thought all in all, an encouraging performance from Bo and this offense, the run game. The defense made some plays, whether it was the fourth downs or the plays in the red zone. It's just like when you are in these moments where you have the chance, you can't let them go, because the NFL has this funny way of like, and not even just in the end of the game, there are times you watch a game in Seattle last year, for example, the Broncos had 2 safeties. I think they forced at least 1 turnover, and yet it was like I can't remember what it was. I think it was a 5-point Broncos lead at halftime or something like that. And you just felt like, man, the Broncos should probably be up by more.
Yeah.
And it comes back to bite them late in the game.
Yep.
And the NFL in particular, more so I think than college football, it's like when you don't take advantage of the opportunities and you let a few opportunities, all it takes is a couple. If you let those go by, it often comes back to bite you. And in this game, whether it was in the first half or whether it was those final 3 drives, like the Broncos had a chance, they didn't execute. They have another chance, they didn't execute. They have a third chance, they didn't execute, and like that's the NFL, and this one is gonna sting, and we might be sitting here in December saying like, ooh, if the Broncos really could have used
this win,
that one, but now you've got to find a way to move on and not let it become 2, because all of a sudden a really difficult road game against the Chargers becomes even more important, because you still go to the Eagles in a couple weeks, and then you've got, even though Joe Burrow's not going to play for the Bengals, it sounds like, they've still got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and they won yesterday. Like Jake Browning's got experience, so like this doesn't get any easier. And I think you've got an opportunity over the next few weeks now to show: are you a team that is still able to? Are you able to push this aside? Go get a big win this weekend and continue to say and prove to yourselves, hey, we've got a chance at the AFC West. We've got a chance to continue to do what we want to be, and get like push for that championship. Yeah. Or is it like, do you fall and then it becomes, hey, how do we like push for a wild card? And it's been 2 weeks. You don't want to like overreact by any means. I think these next few weeks will be valuable. We've seen Sean Payton's teams respond again and again. He's got one of the best records in October in NFL history. The Broncos have struggled in early September the last couple of years, though I would say last year that was more about, hey, it's Bo's first 2 starts ever. But you've got to find a way to like to turn this around and respond, and that becomes important. You can't let one loss become two, and when you're trying to do something like end the Chiefs' reign in the division, and you've got another good team like the Chargers and the Raiders look better, you just cannot take any of these for granted, and you've got to take advantage of them. And hopefully the Broncos, they talk about that race to improve. Hopefully start sprinting a little faster, take the lead in that race, and really use, because I think that's the other thing that we probably both agree on is like coming out of that game, there were some good things, also some clear areas where like if you want to get to where you want to be this year, you've got to get better in these areas. So it'll be interesting to watch them moving forward as they try to do that.
Yeah. Well, head coach Sean Payton also said in Monday's press conference, it's hard to sustain success when you're like this yo-yo team, you know, and that's why he makes it a point to respond quickly. And the way you do that is by going on the road and getting a divisional win against the Chargers. I feel like that is huge, and I think that'll make an even bigger statement of just like, okay, like, yes, we dropped this game, but we learned from that. We can't have the same conversations every week of like, yeah, well, we didn't play as well, but we almost won. Like, that can't be the tell of the tape. Like, that can't be the debrief every single week. Like, okay, you guys learned that, and you got to win. You struggle with that again, and you lost. Okay, now it's like kind of put those two debriefs together and have a solid, like, full experience, full performance against the Chargers on the road, because I think that's the way you move on. I feel like that's winning seems to solve everything sometimes. So, but how do you see this team moving on after this?
Yeah, I think last year is a good example of you lost to Kansas City. You had just gotten blown out in Baltimore, and I think they were 6-6 at that point. And they come home against a Falcons team that I know, kind of in retrospect, that team faded a little bit down the stretch.
But at the time,
they were, if they weren't in first place in the NFC South, they were like right there. Mm-hmm. I think they had a winning record at that point, and the Broncos came out and just crushed them.
Yeah.
And now on the road against the Chargers, a Chargers team that swept the Broncos last year, it is a different challenge. And like Herbert, we're just talking about one game we've seen from them. We have no idea what tonight is going to look like.
Right. And being on a short week too. That's another aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But like Herbert played really well in week one. Like this is going to be a tough game for the Broncos. But I think the resilience they showed last year to a tough loss, or even you lose to Pittsburgh and finding a way to beat Tampa and New York, like
on the road back to back,
stringing those together, those are important and signify to me that, like, again, I still believe that, excuse me, especially a Sean Payton coach team is going to respond. He's done it again and again and again after some kind of early season struggles at times. But every loss kind of, it minimizes your margin for error. And maybe that game to me going in felt like a toss-up, but like you've now got to win another toss-up that goes and get it to go in your favor. Like a game this weekend that I think is considered a toss-up. You've got to find a way to get a game like that to go in your favor. And the Broncos have higher goals this year. So we're not just talking about like, how do you get the 7 seed in the AFC playoff picture, right? It's how do you win the AFC West? And so that's going to require, and I think that's where, like, for me, going back to it, this just feels difficult, is that you had such a golden opportunity to go to 2-0, to be 2 games ahead of the Chiefs, to no matter what happened tonight between the Chargers and Raiders, like next week, your record is at least as good as the Chargers, and kind of really jump off to a fast start. And maybe then you ride that momentum to a win over LA, and then you face a Bengals team that now is without Joe Burrow. Like, you had a chance to kind of get rolling a little bit.
Yeah.
And not to say any of that is like impossible anymore. It's not at all. But like now you've got to have a different mindset of, hey, we've got to jump right back, and we've got to find a way to stop that yo-yo of like, hey, let's get a win against LA and then come home and take care of it against the Bengals. And then, you know, it's going to be a really tough challenge against the Eagles. But like, can you find a way to start stringing wins together? Because I think that's the difference between the wild card and the division, is like, you've got to find a stretch here in the schedule somewhere where you can string some wins together, not yo-yo. Listen, I know the Chiefs are 0-2. They're going to end up with 10, 11, 12 wins still, right? So, like, you've got to find a way to get some of these. I believe in this team, and I think the way Bo Nix played was really encouraging. I still think over time what the defense has shown makes me believe they'll bounce back, especially from a pass rush standpoint. But you've got to go do it. Hopefully we see an angry team this weekend, a motivated team, a team that's ready to get out there and snap a 2-game losing streak to the Chargers. Like, all of that's important.
Yeah.
But you got to go do it. And I think that maybe the Broncos, like, they put themselves in position against the Colts, but they didn't quite do it, right? And so you've got to find a way to close those out and start winning some of these.
Sean Payton mentioned a lot during training camp. The first 4 weeks of the season is a learning curve for a lot of teams. And so I think knowing that he has this mindset and understanding, like, the first 4 weeks, like, you're learning a lot about your team and what you worked on in training camp, how it's translating onto the field, how you need to fix things there. And that's why I'm not too worried. I know that a lot of people in the Twitter spaces of the football universe are very worried, but that's why I'm not, because Sean Payton left space for this to happen almost, where he's like, there's gonna be something that we're gonna have to fix, and the first 4 weeks are gonna show that immediately. But the power comes in fixing it, and he's known to do that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And the Broncos, again, they've improved. The stat I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was something like after September the last 2 years, the Broncos have like the 8th best record in the NFL from October onward, which is really great. But you also, the counter of it is, as you're going on that journey the first 3 or 4 weeks, you've still got to find a way to win some football games in the meantime, right? And Bill Belichick used to be all about that too. Hey, the first 4 weeks is almost like a preseason to some degree, but you can't put yourself, that's something the Bengals had done the last few years. They put themselves in that 0-3 hole, the 1-4 hole. The Broncos had done that the last couple years. So, again, not saying they're going to do that, and certainly still an opportunity to go 2-2, 3-1, like in this opening month.
Right.
But you've got to make sure that as you're growing, you're not like that. It just would have been so much nicer to sit here and say, hey, a lot to work on, but 2-0, that's what matters, right? And so, and even like the TV showed it for a second. The TV had the Broncos at 2-0.
I know.
Unfortunately, we're sitting here Monday looking at a loss that really, as everybody said, felt like it should have been a win. And now you've got to find somewhere to kind of get that one back. Yeah.
Well, it's going to start this week as they go on the road to face the Chargers. And on Thursday's episode, we're going to break all that down. So don't worry, Broncos Country, we have you down packed for that preview, along as other stuff on our YouTube channel and on DenverBroncos.com. But until then, this was another episode of Altitude Advantage. I am your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, we have our game book guru who's going to send a complaint on how long it was, and our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. As always, for the latest news and headlines, make sure you visit DenverBroncos.com.